Well, I think I'll just let you introduce yourself. How exactly do we describe you?
My name is Mutisia Leonard, and I coordinate sexual minority health programs at LVCT.
Great. And we also have David Kuria in studio with us. David, how would you describe yourself?
I would say I was a former political aspirant for the Senate seat in Kiambu.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And well, now at this point in time, would like to also point out the fact that this is a very critical issue. Critical as it might seem, the number of issues that have come up on whether or not Africa should decriminalize homosexuality. Also, have we lost the battle? Has Africa lost the battle? I'm not saying we, but I'm saying has Africa lost the battle to the gay community? Those are some of the sensitive issues that are coming up. But then also, let's also not leave out the fact that we're having the health of these people at risk. The more we criminalize, homosexuality, the health of these people is at risk. And I would like to see some of the remarks that came in from Uganda. And joining us just now is Pastor Martin Semper, who is joining us live, and he's going to be telling us exactly what he thinks of President Barack Obama's remarks that were made in Senegal. And well, let's just see if we can have him online here so he can be able to give us those remarks of his. At some point in an earlier phone conversation, I did talk to him, and he mentioned quite some very strong remarks where he said President Barack Obama should have been arrested in Africa because you don't come to Africa and say things like that, because Africa has got values, has got norms, and therefore it becomes quite very hard for you to actually come to a continent like this and say things like that. But let's hear from Pastor Martin Semper himself. Sarah.
I don't know if the whole president of the most powerful country in the world cannot tell the difference between man and woman and how man marries woman. That really is worrying. First of all, because this is kindergarten stuff. Man marries woman. That's so basic. It's primary school. Secondly, for him to call on Africans in, for example, Senegal, this is 97% a Muslim country. This is a country that is very conservative. For him to come in and use these long words, equality, I mean, he's calling us, first of all, it's a confusion. The president is confused. Somebody's got to tell the most powerful president, Barack Obama, you're confused and you're trying to confuse us. Don't spread your confusion here in Africa. In Africa, man marries woman. That's it. For 5,000 years, our fathers, our ancestors have never told us that a man could ever marry another man. That's so crazy. So the message we want to get out to Barack Obama is that this is not a dream of our father, as his book. This is a nightmare of our father. 2, this is not the hope or the change we can believe in. Or no, this is hopelessness. It's a nightmare.
Well, I'll start with Leonard. You've heard Pastor Martin Semper from Uganda. He actually says he is an anti-BSV, that is, the Sodom vice. He's actually against the barbaric sodomy vice, and that is how he describes himself. I don't know what you would say to him, Leonard, in regard to the remarks he just made.
I think statements like that are very unfortunate because if we look at our country, I don't want to comment about legalizing homosexuality or decriminalizing homosexuality in Africa. Let's talk about Kenya. If you look at our country, in the last month, there's been attack on a gay sex worker who was slashed on the neck and died. And there's been another attack of another gay sex worker who was slashed on the neck and is still recovering in hospital. Here in Nairobi, there's been an individual who was raped with a hammer and hit on the head with the same hammer. And we also know of a recent story where we have lesbians who are expelled from high school in the Rift Valley. And when we have an environment which does not regard human dignity, regardless of our religious positions, regardless of our moral positions, it's very unfortunate because we need to ask ourselves, what is the cost of life in Kenya?
Right. Well, David, let me hear from you. What would you say to the remarks just made by the pastor?
I think the pastor basically mixes two issues that we consistently hear about. There is the issue of criminalization, and there is the issue of same-sex marriage. The two are completely different. I think what people in this country and across Africa, because I've traveled, are asking for issues related to public health and to human rights. So when it comes to human rights, Leonard has just talked about the whole issue of violence, the whole issue of stigma and discrimination, lack of access to services, etc. When it comes to public health, it's about accessing health. Now, in terms of the law, let's note that pretty much what President Obama said, we've already done it in Kenya, you know, because we've enacted a constitution that guarantees, you know, Article 43, right to health, Article 27, which is anti-discrimination. So all that we need to do is to remove a colonial legacy, something that, you know, that we basically inherited from the West.
Well, remove a colonial
legacy.
Legacy.
Really, yeah.
Well, now we're joined here by Doda Craig. By the way, Doda Craig is a Ugandan journalist, and for the very first time, he's actually revealing here on KTN Africa Speaks that he is gay. For reasons, Uganda has got very, you would call them barbaric laws that don't really accommodate the gay community. But he would like to share his experience with us in regard to how he's being treated or how the gay community is treated in Uganda. Doda, what do you have to say about this discussion?
Well, Joy, to start off with, there is actually no African law on homosexuality, because what is considered right or wrong in Africa when it comes to homosexuality is based on traditional and cultural values that most people have, because the communities actually raise people to believe and think and know that homosexuality is a wrong thing. Now, the impact that it has had on the gay community in Africa is that it has promoted self-hate amongst the gay people, because now they are raised to believe that what it is that they are is wrong. And it has also promoted a lot of fake marriages, because most of these people actually end up marrying women and have children and live a lie in society, but also end up having side relationships with their male companions. And this could possibly also be a danger to both the gay people and the straight people, in a sense that psychologically it also tortures someone and they're never in the right state of mind, and this is basically very unhuman.
Well, thanks a lot. That's Doda Craig from Uganda, but he's now working in South Sudan. And from what he says, he actually does point out the fact that it's not really that time, but they will get there, or the gay community will get there. You know, I know he's in a very tight spot, especially being gay in a country like Uganda. It's almost as barbaric as he can describe it. But, you know, I would like to know, first of all, let me ask, is any one of us, are you gay?
Yes.
You are gay. Okay, and how is it? How is the experience knowing that you are gay and knowing that, you know, there is a health risk with us right here at the moment, not only in Kenya, not only in Uganda, but across the African continent? You just said that you are gay. How hard is it for someone who is gay to have health, to access health facilities?
Now,
and how does it affect Africans?
If you go back to the examples I cited around violence, when you grow up in an environment where you're bullied, traumatized, terrorized, are scared that you'll either get arrested or you get beaten up or you get killed, it's very hard for you to be open and honest about your lifestyle. And the people who actually have a secret, private gay lifestyle are more likely to engage in anonymous sexual encounters that often don't use condoms. They're less likely to come out and access HIV testing services. They're less likely to even get information on the appropriate prevention commodities, because these are people who will not come out and seek appropriate relevant services. And
so
when
how
our
do
healthcare,
we deal with this?
so how do we deal with it? We create an environment first within the healthcare system, which is a process that's going on. And I think the work that the Ministry of Health is doing is really exciting, trying to make sure that public health staff are sensitized and are better providers. Create an environment where when you go to access health services, your sexuality is not a barrier. It's not a cause for stigma or alarm, because all Kenyans have a right to health, and that health includes sexual and reproductive health, and it's regardless of sex, regardless of gender expression. These are values enshrined in our constitution, and the appeal from the community of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals is just to respect human dignity and to make sure that our religious positions or moral positions don't instigate violence.
Right.
Don't instigate hate.
Well, don't instigate violence and don't instigate hate. Let me get to you, David. From a political background, as a former political aspirant, I'd like to hear your political stand on this. How best do you think these people should be treated, knowing that we are dealing with an African community who think that, this kind of how can I call it, behavior, if I might generalize the African context, they actually think that this should not even happen on the African continent. And aside from South Africa, we still have all the other African countries still rejecting the gay community. From a political stand, what do you think is the way forward?
I think two things. The first is that, of course, the issue is socially stigmatized. But it's not the only issue that is socially stigmatized, right? So working around issues of social stigma and putting in place structures that enable one individual or community to enjoy the full benefits of the constitution that we have enacted. What Leonard talks about, right to health, access right to health to the highest attainable degree. That kind of thing is something that we have to do without discriminating any individual. The second issue has to relate to us as self-determination of ourselves as a people. What we have is a Victorian law. If you've ever had the opportunity to see in UK the Houses of Parliament, you'll notice that the Parliament, how the Queen accesses the Houses of Parliament, is constructed to the taste of Queen Victoria, because Queen Victoria was a very religious person. Now, we need to ask ourselves, are we going to continue to expose ourselves because criminalization is a social determinant. It diminishes your ability to access health. Do you want, as a people, to continue? If you look at HIV crisis in this country, we're losing 59,000 people annually. We have almost 1,000 new infections every year. MSM, the gay community contribute 15.2%. Question is this situation inevitable? No, it's not, because we know other countries that have done better. So
well, that's the million-dollar question. Is this situation inevitable? And before we can even wind up, let me just get to some of the posts here on Facebook. We're having a lady called Jennifer Oloma Igwe, who is saying, we are a very cultural country. She's actually from Nigeria, and she's saying, we are a very cultural country, so being gay or a lesbian is considered a taboo. In the days of our forefathers, they would be castrated or their families banished. And even today's, it's still a big anomaly. We now have a law that bans same-sex marriage, and those who marry could face up to 14 years in prison. Witnesses or anyone who helps homosexual couples marry could also be sentenced to 10 years in jail. This is just from the Nigerian perspective. And we have Pa Kofi Tinagay, who is from Ghana, who is saying, Africans are a deeply spiritual people. Our culture is intertwined with every action and activity, and we do not comfortably exist outside our way of life. Allowing anything that falls outside our accepted standards of morality and normalcy is a different or a direct infringement on the very fabric of our sanity and existence. And of course, there's so many other tweets that are flowing through Twitter, and I'll just read one of them where Mishori Thuku is saying, according to me, it's unethical and godly, inhuman, and lacking the right words. Let's hear from those doing it. And I'll just, as we wind up, I'll ask one final question. Were you born gay? Were you born and you just realized you were different, and you're just different sexually?
Just allow me just to go back to those comments, because it's hurtful. It's hurtful because we know that speaking for Kenya, and again, I want to be careful not to generalize Africa.
Right.
We know that we're a secular state, and although religious influence is a big factor of social indications and social temperament, we're still a secular state.
Right.
And it is important to remember that in a secular state that is like this and that is democratic, the people have human rights, and that should be the spirit and the philosophy that guides how we treat each other.
Interesting.
And
Let's get to the second question.
Then the second question, I think that's it's not a useful question because there are people who are same-sex practicing out of abuse and it's a coping mechanism. There are people who say that they were born gay, and there are people who are dependent. And
so were you born this way?
When you ask
On a
that
yes or no
question,
basis?
when you ask that question, it's as if to create a hierarchy. That's some people who are more gay than other gays, and we're asking all the wrong questions. We're
Right.
bringing up issues of how were you born, why do you want to get married, issues that are not even coming from the people who are being targeted with this.
Well, we're out of time at this point in time, but I'd like to say thank you so much for joining us in this edition of KTN Africa Speaks. We will continue this discussion on social media. And, well, to everyone out there who is throwing in all these tweets, well, let's just say this was a matter of discussion. And we will continue this same discussion next week on KTN Africa Speaks. So do keep those tweets and Facebook posts flowing in at KTN Africa Speaks and Africa Speaks on Facebook. Well, my name is Joy Doreen Bira, and the conversation continues on social media. Up next is Sports Final.